Right, the most important thing is you have pressure on the footrest. You must always be standing up off the footrest. The footrest is there as the floor, and if you were to jump off the floor, it's that same feeling. You're trying to stand up off the footrest. That's message one. To counteract that, you're pushing down with the shoulders. So up off the footrest, down with the shoulders, keep your chest high. Always you're trying to generate downward force on the paddle, not backward force. As soon as you have backward force, your weight comes off the paddle and everything will come up. We need to generate downward force. We're standing up with our legs, down with the shoulders and pushing down with the hands. Then take out with the back of the arm, not the front of the arm.
You see, like, as you say, come out with the wrist like that. I always say bring the knuckles.
Yeah, take out with the back of the hand.
Yeah.
Canoeing is really hard to do, right? It's very, very difficult because there's absolutely no restriction on where you can be in space. You've only got one fixed point in a canoe, which is the footrest. Okay? Everything else can move. In canoeing, we don't have the luxury of the second fixed point. And that is the magic of canoeing. You have to create your own second fixed point. Okay? Without that, you're only a windmill. Where's our second fixed point going to be?
Bottom hand. In the water.
It's the top hand. It's the top hand. If this top hand isn't fixed in space, then we've got nothing we can do. Okay? So, if I start with basic footrest. So we've got fixed footrest. Now what I want you to watch is my top arm. And my top hand, we start in this position, it's a little bit short for me, but start in this position, bend, and it comes across to this shoulder. So we go all the way through the pull. Tell me what that top hand does. It does nothing. Okay? Starts here, finishes here. Job done. It does nothing. If you watch the bottom arm, it starts like, I call that broken. That's straight, that's bent, that's broken. Okay with that? So it starts broken, it finishes broken. So what's that arm done?
Nothing.
Nothing. What's the top arm done?
Nothing.
Nothing. Bingo. So there we go. Canoeing is not an arm sport. The arms only do what the body does. They express the movement of your body. You have to fix your arms, that way you can get the power from the body into the water. So that's one principle that you have to get, is that canoeing is not an arm sport. It is not a case of whirling your arms around. The faster you whirl your arms around, the faster you will go. The faster you whirl your arms around, the more wheel spin you'll have, the less efficient you become. It's about efficiency, how far you can go with each pull. So that's principle number one. So, canoeing is not an arm sport. We've done that bit. Now, bend your arm. Pull. Canoeing is not a pulling sport. Canoeing is a pushing sport. There's many benefits to this rather than that. Okay? If you got pressure down on this, what's that called? Pressure down on the water, that's a sport stroke, right? That's quite handy when the boat's only this wide. Now it's this wide. Okay? And if you press down all the way through the pull, still got some work to do. Press down all through the pull, then it's a sport stroke all the way through the pull. And we're always safe. Until, of course, so, principle number one is that arms only express what the body does. Principle number two is that if we pull, we're no use. If we push, we are use. So pushing versus pulling thing, just sit on there. One when you do, grab his arms out, crucifix styly. If I put my paddle in here and I pull, in what direction do my hands want to go? Up. Yeah? If I pull back, I will come up. Everything is coming up. The water is pushing me up, my hands want to go up. Therefore I don't have any weight on the paddle. So if I try really hard to pull him back, resist me. Okay? We're kind of equal. If on the other hand, we do the pushing down, he has.
Yeah.
How much stronger? How much stronger?
Not much stronger.
Have you got any chance?
I don't know, we'll see.
So basically what I've got now, if I push down with both hands, is I've got my weight on him. So not only does he have to deal with my strength, it's very easy to pull him back. It doesn't matter how macho he thinks he is. My weight is on his arm, he cannot lift 70 kilos. Okay? See how much difference that was? Okay? So the moment you pull, the water always resists the paddle. The water will push you up out of the water, and we get the high top arms going that we try desperately to solve all the time. So pulling's a no-no, we're always pushing down. Now, with pushing down, when you tell people to put weight on the paddle, as coaches, it gets horrible, doesn't it? All this shite going on. So we don't want them to be folding onto the paddle, because the moment you fold, you lose all your weight. All your weight goes through your hip, the other side again. So the footrest is our one fixed point. All the time we're coming down, we are standing up. That puts my weight on it. If I bend down, that's quite weak. If I stand up, that's quite strong. Okay? So we're always trying to stand up. We must be tall while we pull. The moment you fold, you lose your pressure on the footrest. You lose half your weight, your leg weight, to the other side of the boat. Okay? So we've now got footrest is our fixed point. Body is what does all the moving. We're pushing down and we're standing up during the pull. Please ask questions as we go through, then just suck it up. Because I might be wrong, of course. I'm not. Most important things are my boat moves. That's all that matters. Doesn't matter what I do, provided the first thing that happens is my boat moves. Okay? Now that means I can't have any spillage. I can do all sorts of movements without the boat moving. I'm going to do that. Just forward their hips and then get it going. You've seen that. Others will come up and over. See a lot of the boats, the up and over method, or the round the side method. So when you're watching people in their canoes, or on here, you are always watching, not necessarily them, but you need to see movement from what they do. The whole key to paddling is that all your force goes into the boat. If we're spilling force outwards, we're losing it. Everything has to come in. So you've got to get to a situation where you're pushing with your legs upwards. Something's got to resist that, which will be your shoulders coming down, and everything gets enclosed into the boat. You've got pressure coming up, pressure coming down, and just like when you squeeze a pip, an orange pip, if you squeeze it top and bottom, where does it go? Up the front. That's what we're doing. We're trying to generate lift, then the boat will go. The moment I load this arm, the water wants to spit me out, and this shoulder does that. You've got to resist that, so this arm must be coming. I teach my kids that this shoulder is trying to get to this knee. Boom. Okay? Then I have problems because they start doing this, and then we've got a whole nother problem. But to start with, the direction of this shoulder and this elbow is towards this knee. This hand must never be motivated to go in that direction. Not ever. Okay? It must always be motivated to resist, not to push. If this hand is motivated to go forward, it will come forward faster than your shoulder, and that is always spillage. Okay? So if you see somebody's hand racing forward, it will usually go up and down, or out and round. If it stays here and comes around with my shoulders, that's good. So when I'm teaching the kids I teach, the top arm extends from here to this shoulder and finishes here. This is the top arm. The bottom arm is from here to here. Both arms meet here. Top arm is fixed, which means it's fixed all the way to here and comes around as a unit. It doesn't break. Where can that structure break? It can break at the elbow. It can break at the shoulder. That's about it. Could do the wrist, but that's a bit unlikely. So if it breaks at the elbow, we have the classic that. And if it breaks at the shoulder, we have that. The structure breaks and folds across. So, questions so far? Anything?
When you're saying that the hand never travels forward, is it right that you go through in that sort of braced position following your chest around,
Yeah.
and then is there a last reach at the very front?
When does the last reach happen, do you think?
Said that just before.
You've done this,
On
When you say the power line.
extraction,
air time.
Okay, got it.
That's when it comes out. So the whole water time is fixed. Air time is when it travels out to the front.
I see.
There's a reason why you spend time in the air, other than getting the reach, and why you don't want your kids to rush things. Because the boat doesn't travel at a uniform speed. It's at its slowest when the paddle goes in the water, and it's at its fastest, ideally, when the paddle comes out the water. Actually, it doesn't work like that in bad paddlers, but that's how we're going to do it now. If the boat is travelling at its fastest, so its speed is like this, yeah? Fast and slow. If the boat's travelling at its fastest here, what's the last thing you want to do?
Slow it down.
Put the paddle in and make it go its slowest. We have to wait. And you have to wait. Yeah, you're not sitting there thinking, but there is no rush, essentially, to put that other paddle in. It has to be back to at least average. When is the only time you rush it to go in? When you're increasing speed. So first 10 strokes, acceleration only. Once you're up to speed, there's no rush anymore. You just have to keep tapping along. So that's it. That's essentially it. We're going now. What we're trying to do when we're pulling is we need to have what I'm going to call a positive angle. This hand is further back than this hand. This is when you can generate power, okay, and lift. All the time I'm doing that, the boat is getting lighter and lighter. The moment I get to this point, I have no power anymore. Okay? None at all. Right, while we're here, we've got a couple of mistakes here already. So we'll talk about it. This position. Can I go to the toilet? So, can I leave the class? Okay, let go of that. There's an area here. We're trying to create this strong top arm. This is the key, so this is important. These arms are only strong in certain positions. Okay? If you were to do a press up, where would you do a press up? Somewhere here, I don't know, but vaguely here. If you were to do a bench press, where would they be? Vaguely here. No one does a press up here, or a bench press up here. There's a reason. Hands down, in press up position. Are you strong? You better be, because I trust in you. Okay? That's half decent. Right. Here, push hard as you can. This is not good. Okay? Out here, this is also not good. Okay? So there's an area here somewhere, and it differs from one person to another. Somebody will do a bench press here, somebody will do it here. People are people. And that's where one of the differences creeps in technique. Some people are happy up here, some people are happy out here. Now, for most people, you're pretty good at 90 degrees. Now, every photo you see of people head on, the good guys will be roughly 90 degrees. The very good guys are strong enough to go just outside 90 degrees. So people like Tim who had the baboon arms anyway, he can just go outside 90 degrees. And the further you go out, obviously the more force you can generate. If you can hold that force. Someone like me, I'm just inside 90 degrees. And that's kind of more normal. So this is important, positioning of the top hand. Have it somewhere strong. Nobody does press-ups with elbows higher than their shoulders, because that's just giddy. And that's good there, okay? So when you set up next time, don't mess me about. Okay, in this position, just pull up the slide, see what you got. Okay, that's not bad. So, all of them. That's all of them. Okay, in this position, don't put hands up. Nice and strong. Okay. When you watch her, she's getting frustrated. Just be calm. Go. Just stop a minute. She's desperate to finish the stroke, to get the stroke done. So what does she do? She starts pushing that top hand out. There's no, all the time you can't move the boat, you've got to be in the strongest position possible. Don't weaken it, just because you want to get there. You have to wait until you get there. So you have to keep this strong position. So we'll get to that in a minute. What I'm aiming at the moment, I keep getting distracted, is that in this position, in a positive angle, she can move 8 bungees, and she will always be able to move it this far. Go. Go. Okay? Now, if you double the load on those bungees, and you go again, she can still move that far. Okay? Now, if we be calm. Okay, if we start from here, what have we got on there? 3. If we start from here, now we're in a negative angle, where this hand is above this hand, and ask her to go to the end of the slide. Come on. Come on. You can't do it. So here we had 16 bungees worth, and we can always move this far. The moment this hand overtakes this hand, you're rubbish. Nothing personal. No one can do this, okay? So you must generate power, which you can do in this position. Otherwise, you get to that position with your top hand too soon, and then you're essentially useless. Thank you. Canoeing, or kayaking, whatever you want to call it, just like pretty much any other sport, is about sequencing. It's not about what it looks like from the side. We all watch kayaking from the side. It's a crap place to watch kayaking from. It's about sequencing. So if you were to do a throw, if I'm going to throw something through that door, set me up, what's the first thing I do?
Look at it, just jump on.
Turn sideways. I'm going to go sideways and throw through there. Then what? Then I'll load my back leg, because where's the power going to come from the throw?
Transfer from there.
The power is coming from the leg. I set my arm up in this position. Does that look familiar at all? Okay. All sports are the same. We set up in this position, we've got the legs bent like that, we've got the arm bent like that, and what happens? I start with my leg. What's my arm done? Nothing. Then my hip joins in. What's my arm done? Then my waist joins in. Then my elbow, and then my wrist and my fingers. So I start with power, which is slow. Okay? I'm going to put slowly, don't I? If I let go of this, having done the power bit, it's none too impressive. Equally, you're up. Have we got a fluffy ball or something? Or just a bit of paper. Rather than doing a bit of paper.
What was that? No.
Yeah, go for it. Okay, it's a bit unfair. I might pick the wrong person, but there are two types of throws. There are boys' throws, and there are other throws.
Do you want me to do a girl's throw?
I'd like to just see you throw it.
Like, do you want me to try properly, or do you want me to just
Do whatever you want.
Throw it properly like a girl. There you go.
Not too bad. It's alright, it's alright. But you're not going to generate much power once this is off the floor. This must stay on the floor throughout. Foot must stay on the footrest throughout. So, it's very different. That essentially, you've lost the power halfway through and you just use the speed. Okay? Speed without power is rubbish. That's the negative angle on there. So, for throwing, power, power, speed. Okay? In that order. This is exactly the same. You can put that. So here we generate power. Power, power. Now we've got the boat moving. There's probably zero resistance at this stage to the boat moving. Resistance on here still. We generate the power and then we generate the speed. We can only use the fast muscles or the small muscles for the speed bit. If we use the speed at the front, it's done. If you do a deadlift, exactly the same. Golf swing, exactly the same. Deadlift, if you try to do this bit first, before you do this bit, it won't go very far. You have to get the thing moving and use the biggest muscles, the smaller ones, the smaller ones, the smaller ones, the smallest ones. Okay, because the smaller the muscle, the faster it will move. So it's all about sequencing. You cannot break the sequence, nor can you override the sequence and use your fast ones first just because you're in a hurry. You have to be patient. Catch is a strange thing because it's very important, but we've just talked about it. It's what part of the stroke? The slowest part of the stroke. How many people try and hit the catch? That's a terminology we hear a lot of.
Because they're starting the stroke from up here.
Yeah, you try and hit the catch. If you're standing by the side of a swimming pool and you dip your foot in to see how cold it is, how much resistance does that water offer you? None. You will go straight to the bottom. If you jump off the 10-metre board and hit that water, how much resistance does that water offer you? A hell of a lot. If you hit a catch, it offers you infinite resistance. The only way you can get around that is to jar, escape it, and go. Okay? The catch is a slow part of the stroke. The paddle is put in the water. You familiar with watching swimming? Sometimes you see that from underwater. Hand goes in here, then where does it go? Forward. Goes in the water and forward, then they hook on, and then they pull back. The actual placing of the paddle, or hand, in the water is in the wrong direction for movement. Okay? But unless you hold on to water, if you hit it, you will always end up with that vacuum behind the paddle. And until that vacuum is filled and the paddle is wedged in the water, you have no power. Because power relies on, if you're pushing on this side, there's no resistance to the other side, nothing. You haven't got prayer. So you have to have the paddle enclosed and embedded in the water before you pull on it. So you can use whatever language you like to get that across to your athletes. Terminology I use, because I want to use something slower than a hand. If you start talking about placing your hands, they're the things that move very fast. So I want my kids to put the paddle in with their top shoulder. So they're here, and the paddle is put in the water, boom, with the top shoulder. It's this that puts the paddle in. Okay? If you start putting in with your hand, you'll come back. Okay? We're starting there still. What you've got to do is hit that water so hard that you go to the end of the thing. Go. And it just bounces off. You see his body, this hand will want to go up. His whole body jars. Only when it's all stabilised does he then move to the end of the slide. One more go. Okay. It's massively destabilising because everything gets juddered. You have to wait until the vacuum behind the paddle fills, and then you can go. So we never hit the catch. We place, we place, we place. It's like a nice crawling, like creeping cat type movement. It's a nice steady. Right, we're fine. Thank you, Mike.
Yes, you're almost waiting for the blade to be put in before you start.
Yeah. A good catch, you don't know when it happened, you just know that it has. Okay? So when you see people on the paddling machine, if that string is going ga-dang, 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 every time they pull, and you can hear it, this isn't a good catch. It must be type noise. We'll do that a bit later.
And the catch.
Just see how good my imitation was.
Positive angles are just as
The catch has to be at positive angle.
So Ivan, what are you thinking about the weight transfer, like this concept, like how it actually you're gonna transfer the the weight
From
the catch? So you say like you don't want
From this catch, okay? This shot, I'm pushing on this leg. This is my main producer of force, okay? That will push me over this way. That's not how I want to be, because I've got no weight on the paddle. So I must counter this force with this force. From this shoulder, and this way. And I must stand up off my left leg. My motivation is to get out of the boat. So just like if I had a chair either side and I want to get off this seat, I would push down to go up. That's what we're trying to do. We're trying to generate downward force so that it lifts me up. Because if I'm lifted up off this seat, if I can't do it, nobody can, but if I could push down hard enough to get me off this seat, how much of my weight is then on this paddle? Absolutely all of it, okay? You can't get all of it, but we talk about getting all of it. So the more I can push down with my shoulders, the more weight I've got on this paddle. So that's how I get my weight onto that paddle. If this paddle snaps now, I'm going in this side. If that paddle snaps now, I'm going in that side. Okay? So we've done our pull. Boom. The pull, where we can actually generate power, is over. But we generated some movement now. So actually, once I'm moving in this position, I can, even that adds to it. As long as I can keep pressure on this side of the paddle, anything I do, whether it's gripping my hand up, will add to that. And the best at this was Holman, and we'll go through that in a minute. But from this position, we've got to get that paddle out somehow. And the main motivation for getting it out, or during the phase where we get it out, is what? Not to slow us down. Okay? So you've got two ways that people get paddles out. They either come inwards and do this whole thing, or they go outwards. Inwards is a problem because once you lift that elbow up, you start a sequence of events: bicep, forearms, and you start turning in. So if you sit there like that, well, you can if you want. Just sit there like that for me. We're doing direct instructions now. Come on, sit there like that. If you turn your elbows up and your wrists in, what happens to your shoulder blades? They come off your spine, off your rib cage, right? The only thing that holds your arm to your body is that shoulder blade. Okay, so now you've got a little pipe cleaner on its own, in space, flapping about. It's no use to you. You can't generate any force with that at all. It's not actually attached anymore. If you sit there like that, drop your elbows, turn your wrists out, turn your hands back, now where are your shoulder blades? Fixed, they're compressed onto your rib cage. If you come out that way, that hand still expresses what your body's doing. It still doesn't have an opinion of its own, and that's much better. The other reason why you don't want to come inwards is because once you've got to here, you're stuck. You can only come upwards. And if you're coming upwards and the boat is going forwards, the paddle is actually stationary compared to the, relative to the boat, and all the time you're bringing it out, it's slowing you down. If you come out to the side, it doesn't matter how late you take it out, you can still be moving it backwards. Doesn't matter how late you take it out, but what I'm saying is, even if you take it out too late, provided you've gone out that way, it will still be moving and it will come up anyway. The other benefit, of course, if you lift the elbow first, you have to lift all of the arm. If you lift elbow last, you only lift half an arm. And over a couple of hours, or 20 hours, that adds up. Okay? So you just relaxing. If you lift your elbow first, you get tension here. If you lift your elbow last, you have no tension here. It's all relaxation. So it's important, I tell my kids, to take the paddle out with the back of the arm, not the front of the arm. That's an instruction I give them. Now, what will counter that is if you look at your Holman's, when he's in this position, which I'm telling you to be in, his next position is that. Okay? Because he's keeping this face of the paddle, and this is sort of the icing on the cake that most people, including myself, can't do. They can actually keep the face. If you roll out that way, you lose the drive face. He will keep the face still in the drive direction, and he can still add the last bit of speed to his stroke with this.
Does that not scoop water out on the exit?
It will still come out to the side. So you've got the closed edge and the open edge. It will still come out to the side and the water will just pour off. If you do this, yes, you can't. The paddle is level, not coming out at an angle, so yes, you will in here. So not only braking, you're lifting a load of water, and also as that shoulder comes up, we're losing our balance as well. But I think your arm has a natural path. It's only dropping. The only reason it comes back to you is because it's attached at the top and not at the bottom. So it comes back in its natural arc. Once you've got to the bottom of that natural arc, or somehow the bottom isn't at the bottom, it's there. It drops to there, and then you take it out. Come too far. Come on. Okay. So the wheels come to about here. That's what we're going to watch. So what are our faults to start with? You tell me. Top hand was doing,
Just shooting straight forward.
was wanting to go up. Go again. And the bottom arm probably bends too early. Okay. So we'll start with, do one more. Okay, there's some good bits here. Her leg is pretty good, and she doesn't fold onto the paddle, so she's standing off the paddle. So we'll find someone else who's rubbish at that bit later and go through that later, but that's good. So with those pieces in place, there's nothing to stop her getting that wheel to the end of the slide. Okay? So we're going to go through one bit at a time. The motivation for the bottom hand is not to pull back, it's to get to the floor. Okay? So top hand, do what you like with for now. And your only motivation now is with the leg and to get this bottom hand to the floor. Go. So we've gained a little bit. Okay? Now, remember, nobody does press ups like this. It's all like this. Okay? So we're going to be in this position now. Okay? We're going to try and keep that hand that far away from your shoulder. Okay? This isn't going to make much difference, I don't think, unless she's super learner. This hand's going to the floor. Okay. a little bit, just moving her hand out. Now, this shoulder and this elbow are trying to come to this knee. Okay? That's what you're thinking of this time. If you can keep the downward force, that's fine, but mostly we're concentrating on that elbow, your right elbow is trying to come across to your left knee. Okay. One thing we saw there that we haven't talked about, watch your head on the next go. You got a lot further up the slide there because she looked more forward that time. If you don't look where you're going, you won't go where you're going. You have to look where you're going. Then all the muscles know what to do. You start looking, we all ride a bike, right? How do you go around the corner on a bike?
Looking where you're going to go.
No one actually knows, it goes by magic. Okay? It goes by magic, and it goes by magic because you look where you want to go. You never have to steer a bicycle. It just goes around the corner by magic. Your muscles will put your vehicle where you look. So if you're on a crowded start line, who hates a crowded start line? What do you look at on a crowded start? What do you see on a crowded start line? You see boats, right? You see boats. What you must see on a crowded start line is the space. You must see space. If you start looking at boats, you will crash into boats. If you start looking at space, there is space. It just happens. Steve's been there. Marathon start at the Worlds, you are how close to somebody?
Oh, it's there, isn't it?
They're here.
Yeah.
They're literally here. There isn't actually room to put your paddle, but when he says go, you all go. If you look forward, you will go forwards. So all we're going to change this time is you're going to look straight, pick a point in front of you. We've got this going down. And we're really closing in at the end of the slide now. So, what I want you to do, again, right elbow to left knee, look through the door, chest high throughout the whole thing, and boom, we're going to the end of the slide. Okay? So just by changing a few thought processes, she's gone roughly 18 inches to 2 feet further for each pull. Okay, that's massive. And it's not any harder to do that than it was to do the first one. So it's the sequencing and the process of thought. What you're trying to do is not to get the next stroke in. In fact, that's the last thing you're trying to do. What you're trying to do is this stroke, now. And this stroke has to be held into the boat. The leg is pushing up, the shoulders are pushing down, all your forces meet just under your rib cage, here, boom. When you do a big start, it feels like someone's kicked you in the chest. Okay? From 0 to 1, it hurts here, all the forces meet. So you're pushing with your leg, you're coming down with your shoulder, the force comes up here, down here, and meets here. That's what we're going to do now. You picture that bit just below your rib cage, all your forces are going into that, pushing down, and look where you're going. What did you do wrong? Top hand, okay? She let me down. Up to that point, it just got better and better, and you mucked it up. Okay, so elbow, this whole forearm, shoulder is coming to the opposite knee, chest high, eyes forward, and boom. So now she's getting to the end with force, not just tapping the end. Okay?
I noticed something, and I found this in Masterclass too, is that the paddle seems very flat, not more angled.
Yes.
Is that a bad thing, or is that you're not strong enough to get it in the right angle, or?
Let's bring you up here.
Okay.
So you're saying,
So what I'm saying is this angle going through
yeah,
is like that,
yeah,
more than like
like
that.
that. Okay.
Yeah.
So-
Now to get it to that,
Yeah.
you're obviously shooting this hand a bit up. If that makes sense.
Yeah. Or you could have your hands further apart.
So now, then,
And that looks a whole lot better.
yeah.
Okay, so too flat. I mean, if you take it to its ridiculous
Yeah.
degree, too flat, and you're just
Yeah.
scooping around the outside. If you're upright, the paddle is upright, and the water is being used as it's designed to. It's just getting that strong position. Now, by the way you held that when you first came,
Yeah.
it's just
And,
all
and,
too
and,
close.
and that's what I found is my hands are slipping inwards.
Slipping inwards isn't too bad.
Yeah.
Slipping outwards
Yeah.
is bad.
Yeah.
Okay? So at least if he's slipping inwards, I know his force is trying to come down the
Yeah.
paddle shaft.
Yeah.
So that's fine. You might want to put an extra bit of tape on,
Yeah.
just a reminder.
Yeah.
A little
Yeah.
razor blade.
Yeah.
Something a nail, rusty
Yeah.
nail. Okay, so it's getting to a mechanically efficient width on your paddles is key. Now, the nearer your hands are, the more you do with your arms and waist, and the further they are, you get to bring your chest in as well. So, but at some point you get so wide you can't function anymore.
Yeah.
So you have to hit that happy medium.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay.
Can I ask you something?
Of course.
Like, if you see the posture of Brad right now, he's folding like he disengages his abdominals at the moment, and I can see it in quite a few fast paddlers as well. Some of them will keep, and
Yeah.
I know that I'm collapsing as well.
Yeah.
I'm trying to keep it high, but like, is it?
The problem Brett has is he's a bloke
Flexibility.
and he's got tight hamstrings.
Yeah.
He can't sit upright. I have the same problem.
Yeah.
So to be upright for him is totally unnatural, uncomfortable. If you do slump, you lose a bit of rotation. But actually, we don't rotate an awful lot, even the good paddlers. The rotation comes from bum movement rather than from spinal movement. There is some spinal movement, obviously, but it's not a huge amount. Most of it is just from the hips.
Doesn't it add to the problem when you do a longer race? This position will kill
You might be right, because Brett hasn't done very well on the longer race. more of a short race person, I think. Yeah. So yeah, she might be onto something, Brett. Ideally, so mechanically, you would be what they call neutral. So you wouldn't be rounded out like he is. That gives you your full rotation. But everyone has their natural posture. I would suggest that he stretches his hamstrings a bit, because otherwise he'll end up with a back problem like I had, because I had the same problem. So problems we see. This. Lots of people paddle like this. The moment you bend forward, you're bringing your chest to your knees, or the other way around, your knees to your chest. If you're bringing your knees to your chest, how much pressure is on the footrest? None. So the bobbin has to stop. Okay? The instruction you give to stop the bobbin is to stand off your footrest. You're trying to stand up off your footrest. If they try and reach forward, you get a catch that's further forward, you get a lot more. You see a lot there. So that's a fault you want to look at. As I let him go, that shape's staying. No, he's gone on. Come back to the start. This is your shape, and he's going to do that. Nothing will change. Grab your shape, tall, shoulders down, standing up through your leg, and as I let him go, perfect. Boom. Now he's finished that's the power done. If I ask him to move from there, he won't get any force through that at all. From that point on now, we're taking out. So that hand will come out to the back, and as that does that, this one will come to the front, all in one. Nice movement. Okay? We're setting up on this side. What's wrong with this picture? Elbow's higher than his shoulder. We've got a lot of tension, we'll have a lot of injuries. Drop your elbow. Nice. That's a nice shape now. Leg, stand up through, both shoulders are pushing down to meet in the middle, perfect. I'd like his top hand a little bit further away from his shoulder, but I'm happy with this, it's okay. Hold that shape, generate force through your leg, and he unwinds, he unwinds, he unwinds, he unwinds, he unwinds, perfect. Power's over, I can feel because all of a sudden he can't move the wheel. if I'd let go of the wheel, the wheel would speed up and up and up, and the loading would get less and less and less through the stroke. From there, take out and come up. Beautiful. And set up again the other side. Okay? And that's quite nice. So his problem was that he wants to get weight on the paddle by bobbing forward, and he wants to release the force by bending over. Top hand's not actually too bad. Okay? That's what you've got to work on.
Cool.
Just paddle along for me. Okay, stop. So we mean well. Let's pick holes in what he's doing to start with. He's doing the bobbing, it's the first thing. Okay, so he wants to put weight on the paddle. He's trying to put weight on the paddle. He's trying to put weight on the paddle by putting his top half on the paddle. We need to put the whole lot on the paddle. So we need to stand off the footrest a lot more than he is. So let's get you in a setup, or let's entry catch position. Okay. Now start to load the paddle. Okay, so his top hand wanted to migrate upwards, so we've got to fix that, and he can't move it now because I've stopped him, unless he's really strong. I don't think anyone's that strong. Okay, so from there we need to generate force. What have we got on his right hand side there? We got our concertina. Okay, so we need to get rid of that. So you need to stand up through your right leg and be tall. Okay, so leg to the top of your head is now tall. Your shoulders start to compress down. Okay, so again we saw movement. He can't move because he hasn't moved the boat yet. He's only moved the boat when this wheel goes, and it hasn't gone. So if I see any movement in this shape, he's broken his shape. So start with the leg, go the arms. Start with the leg. Leg, tall, chest high. Now your shoulders, coming into this point, pushing down with your left shoulder, that's nice, that's nice. Okay? And that's his shape that will remain until he's finished the pull. More force, more force, more force. This is good now. He's still got a bit of concertina going on, but nothing's moving. Okay, you can relax with it, 'cause that's quite hard. That's quite hard. So, if in this position I ask him to pull and his top hand wanders up, I know he's a person who wants to spill upwards. Sometimes it goes out, and sometimes they'll fold. All to get some movement, because the brain wants something to happen. I'm not allowing anything to happen. You have to accept that. You haven't finished this part. You haven't finished this bit. You can't start the next bit until you finish this bit. So let's get in that shape again. Leg up through your head. Shoulders down. Not the right shoulder, both shoulders. See how he's gone horrible now. Okay, so your chest is going to stay level. Your shoulders are going to stay level. You fold. You'll see like a concertina here, either a fat or just t-shirt, depends who you're looking at. That concertina fold is a very bad sign. That means that you've generated all the power with your leg and you've just spilt it. The motivation to spill comes from your motivation to finish that stroke. Because by spilling force, you can get to the front and to the next stroke an awful lot quicker. So when you're looking at your paddlers, we're lucky we got stripes. Have you got stripes on your shirt now? No. Horizontal stripes need to stay horizontal. I don't need them tilting to the side I'm having on. I don't even tilt them the other side either, but that's quite difficult to do. So you don't want the bobbing and you don't want the dipping. They're both spilling type mechanisms. You don't want the hand bent up. I'll tell you what else you don't want. You don't want to see knees flapping up and down in the wind, okay? Just because your knee is moving up and down, it doesn't mean diddly. You're not fancy because your knee is sprayed X giving it all this underneath. The purpose of pushing on your leg is to do what? It's to drive your hip back and to stand you up out of the boat. If, when you push on your footrest, your heel just disappears down the boat and none of that force comes this way, your knee's doing a lovely thing, but you haven't produced any force. So if you see someone whose legs are going up and down in the boat, it's very easy to see on there and on here because you've got the whole view. But if the force they're applying isn't making the boat move, then you have to look for where all these spillage points are. Okay, that's one of the first ones. Because everything looks right to you, all the movement patterns look right, but there's no power being generated. The boat doesn't lift out of the water. So when you're watching the boats go through the water, this person's boat will be doing what during the pulling phase? We'll be going down into the water during the pulling phase. At the end of the pulling phase, the boat is at its lowest point in the water. It's gone, ugh, and then they're in the air, and the boat will come up. So the boat will go up and it will go down, but it will go down when they're pulling and up in the rest. A good paddler, the boat will come up during the pull and down during the rest. So when you're watching your paddlers paddle, you look at them from the side, the boat must surge when they're paddling. It mustn't bob up after they've paddled. That's another sign that they're not generating lift or force. They're only paddling. They only go along by chance.
So with a bad paddler, does the boat go up because they effectively lower down and they move
Boat
back?
goes up because it's been pushed down, then the water will bob it back up.
Yeah.
It will come up
Yeah.
in the air time.
Yeah.
We want it to be sinking down in the air time. Well, we don't actually, but it does that because gravity is faster. As the coach, you want to use primarily your ears. This wheel will change noise as it goes faster. It will start vroom, finish vroom, vroom, vroom. If it just goes, you're not generating more and more speed. All the time that paddle's in the water, this wheel must be going faster and faster and faster. If it just goes one uni speed, we're missing the point. Okay.
Well, maybe it's only when I'm
Kind of looks okay-ish. I'm no expert on where you should sit, to be fair. But how I set my kids up is that if they can flatten one leg, but if they go to flatten two, they would fall off the back of the seat, which is really vague. But
They have to be pretty warmed up to be able
I mean, you're talking about this movement. I cannot paddle like this, so I just press against, and then they move much less because I'm pressing with both and then only adding on one side. And I see people doing literally that, and like moving around a lot here.
Okay, do that again for me. Do the loads of moving around with the bum bend, you see. And you see the concertina happen a lot with those people.
Yes.
When you see the people who do that huge movement, especially on that machine, that hip will come up and join their rib cage. Okay, when we're pulling, we need this gap to stay the same between the pelvis and the rib cage. If that gap closes, which a lot of those big hip movement people do, it all looks fancy, but it adds up to diddly.
Yeah, so what I do, I just press like this, and then there is a little bit on the feet, but there is no movement here, and then I always get told that I don't drive.
Okay. I want all your pressure, I want pressure on your right leg, and that right leg is trying to make the top of your head go nearer the ceiling. You got that? As a concept, you're okay with that? Now I want your shoulders to be pushing down so that they're meeting the power of the leg coming up. This hand I want. Now. That's better. Okay. Right. Push harder and harder on that right leg. Tell me now how much pressure is on that left foot.
Nothing.
Nothing. You can't do both at once. If you're pulling on one side, you can't do it. So what you're doing is you're generating a load of force with the legs, but you're not matching it with any force stopping it. So I can generate huge force with one leg. If there's not a wall in the way, what have I done? Nothing. I'm not generating any. I can't generate force for this because there's nothing. All I can do is movement with it. If there's something in the way, I can generate a lot more force with this because that's resisting and I don't go anywhere. So if I try and push like that, my legs only have to do so much. If there's a car there and I'm pushing that, I will generate a lot more force with the legs. If the car's got its handbrake on, I will generate even more force with my legs. It won't result in anything, but the forces increase the heavier the load I have to push. So if you're using your legs and nothing's happening, it's because there's no opposing force. And the opposing force comes from the shoulders. So you're trying to stand up from the footrest and you hold that force down with your shoulders. Okay. So first leg, get that pressure going. Now both shoulders are pushing down. Beautiful. You can see where the spillage is going to come. It's coming from that left arm moving outwards. Okay. So your motivation, remember this left arm. So where's she braking? If we go right back to square one and the arm goes all the way from here to here, she's braking at this joint. Okay. So you've got to hold that joint in. All the forces are trying to push it out. You've got to hold it in. All the force must come inwards. It's like you're cuddling this ball. All the force must be coming in. Just push that ball into the mid section. Okay? So start with the basics and stand up. Be tall. Chest high, looking forward. Now shoulders down. Now apply force. Huge force, huge force, huge force. Still wants to do it, but the idea is in your head now because I can see you doing it differently. Okay, so this side. Set up, chest up. If you're looking down at the paddle, you will go down to the paddle. Okay, so that's why we need to be looking up and we need chest high. Down into the water, shoulders down, right shoulder to left knee. There we go, there we go. That's good. Okay, that is much better this side. Okay. So the instruction that kind of clicked at her was the right shoulder to left knee. So you run through your instructions, one of them might work. Generally they don't, but one might. So try it in loads of different ways. Let's go this side, see if we can do it this side. So your motivation is to, we've got the standing up, that's a given. That left shoulder to right knee. That's what your shoulders are trying to do. Okay, set up and go. That's pretty good. It's better. Okay, it's not perfect, but it's better. Okay, and that's where your force comes. You can generate huge force, the same as we did on this when we had 8 bungees and pre-stretched them. We can always generate that massive, massive force. It doesn't matter who you are, how strong you are, that force can be generated. That's why when you're on the start line against some circus midget of a 9-year-old, the bloke says go, and boom, they've gone. Fucking little ass.
When you're passing this on to absolute ab initio paddlers, what's the biggest problem you find? Because I would have thought perhaps if you've got the wrong size blade, you're going to try and put too much pressure on. So a small blade right at the beginning to allow them to get into the position, because they may not, we're all sort of familiar, they may not be formed to be able to hold that position.
One of the biggest problems, you see, when somebody fails to get a nice catch, they come to me and they ask for a bigger paddle, because that's what the coach wants. The reason they haven't got a good catch is because when this paddle goes in, they're not strong enough, or they're not pushing in the right direction to hold the force on. So this hand disappears. When they come and buy a bigger paddle, the problem gets worse. They're trying to get a grip of the water, which they weren't doing before, but they're going the wrong way. So if your athlete can't do the right shapes, you have to decrease the loading until they can. And then gradually you either resist this more, you put more bungees on that, and at some point their structure will break. And at that point, breaking the structure, you must back off that and build them through it again. So, you know, you've already got a beautiful cable machine there. That you see in what part of the stroke these people are weak, so you work on it. You hold them, you get this shape, and you keep working through this shape, this shape, this shape. You load it up, and if they can't keep the shape, bring it back down again. So yeah, smaller paddles are, teach someone to paddle with small paddles. If they can grip the water with a paddle this size, then they know how to grip water. Then you can build the paddle up and up and up. Don't try and help them to grip the water by making the paddle bigger and bigger, because that's not how it works.
Tell me about the length of the paddles, because like
No.
people, yeah, exactly. Everyone has a different approach, and I just see people, especially beginners, paddling with those long paddles, and I'm like, just it hurts them. It's literally hurting their
Yeah.
shoulders and lower backs and stuff.
But it's not that it hurts them, because actually they can only apply so much load. You can only apply, if you're only capable of generating 30 kilos of pressure, you can only generate 30 kilos of pressure. By having a bigger paddle, or a bigger end, or a longer paddle, it doesn't make you any stronger. You can still only generate the same force. So if that amount of force isn't strong enough then, to get the paddle through the water, how are you going to get to the end of the stroke? You have to do spillage. So you teach people to do spillage by overloading them when they're at development stage. So you mustn't, just start with the smallest paddle you've got and work up. It soon feels wrong, doesn't it, if you've got a paddle that's too short. But it's the big paddles, I don't know, it's fundamentally wrong. Although if you do the physics and the maths, the bigger the end, the better the result. But then you have to decrease the loading by shortening the paddle. So that's physics. Physics and sport don't always mix, because there's an art to sport. But
Well, this is what I see, like, especially female, if they have got a paddle, unless they are like 6 foot tall, anything
Yeah.
above 210 is like a killer for a woman.
Yeah.
Because they just
well,
cannot.
210 is pretty big, isn't it?
Yeah, it is already, I
Yeah.
already cut mine to 2.5 because
Yeah.
210 was
Yeah.
for me, just, it
Yeah.
didn't work completely.
Yeah.
The other thing is you see a lot of weaker paddlers who is not feather the blade enough, even with the wig.
So there's spilling.
Yeah. That's,
Then that's telling you the loading's too high, I guess. So shorten them or cut the ends off the paddles.
but British canoeing coaches have told some of our junior girls
Well,
to
they
go
all
from
want them to go on bigger paddles.
B3s to B4s. Well, unnecessary.
Yeah, it is
Unnecessary.
totally unnecessary. No one knows everything, but I know they're wrong on that. Okay, there's some things you can argue about, and some things that are just right or wrong. And to move someone up a paddle so that you can improve their catch is just plain stupid. You can't pull any size paddle through the water unless you spill water off the edge of it. That swimmers can grip with this, with a hand with gaps in it. Okay, they can hold water exactly the same as you can with a Bracha 1, with their hand, which is this big. There's nothing that slips through the water if you hold on to the water. You can't compress water, and you can't. All you can do is spill off the edge. Okay, so there isn't a size of paddle. There is a size of paddle that's too small if you're accelerating, because you have inefficiencies when you accelerate anyway, and they're part of the process, because nobody can move from 0 to top speed in one pull. So you have to have spillage somewhere. But once you're moving, you can go down to this size paddle and you can still grip the water exactly the same.
Okay.
I think.
And would you teach your kid with wings to start off with, or flats?
Yeah.
Ideally?
I don't see a difference between the two. Wings are, in my opinion, just a dumbed down flat paddle. So it saves half the problem. With a flat paddle, like a flat stone, if you drop a flat stone in water, it doesn't sink, does it? It does that down to the bottom. If you drop a feather, it does that in the air. So as you pull your paddle through, as the water spills off this side, it will tilt. You correct that, and it comes off the other side, and it tilts, and you correct it, and you correct it, and you correct it, and you correct it. You don't know you're correcting it, you just do it by feel. So your paddle is essentially doing that. And if you ever go back to a flat paddle after a wing, has anyone done that? And it goes like that all the way through. Because what you've been using is one where they shut the door on one edge. Now it can only come off one side, you've got half the jobs to do. You get dumbed down, give yourself a real paddle again, and you're too stupid now to be able to stop it flapping. So a wing paddle is exactly the same as an ordinary paddle. A good paddle would have exactly the same path of the paddle, with a flat paddle and a wing paddle, but you just got half the work to do with a wing paddle. It's just a dumbed down spoon on a stick.
You think the trajectory would be the same?
Yeah.
Not coming more down the boat like these?
No.
You look back at some of the old ones, look at the Fonovich, it was exactly the same.
It's just the same.
Yeah.
You're just trying to
Exactly
keep
the same.
the drive face of the paddle perpendicular to the water. It doesn't matter if it's here or here or here, provided it's perpendicular to the direction of movement. You're okay. If you tilt it outwards, a good paddle shape will be a J shape. A normal paddle shape, when you look at people, is a C shape. You go like that, and then tuck it in at the back. And it's that horrible C shape. And of course that's all turning force. This is all drive all the way through. And you know, if you can't hold your shapes, it's all about holding your shapes. And as people get down their 1,000 metres, 500 metres, marathon, whatever it is, those shapes will gradually break down. And you know on that last 30, 40 metres of 500, which is probably the worst experience of your life, all you're trying to do is maintain some semblance of normality. You don't have any idea what your legs are doing anymore. They've lost communication with your arm. And when you get to here, just above the water, you are wondering 100% whether that paddle will fall out of your hand or not. And you think, I hope it doesn't, because I'm just about to rely on it. So shapes break down as you get tired. So you've got to get to a stage where you can hold your shapes. That's all you want to do. Hold the form, hold your form, hold the shapes. If you can hold the shape right through, you're better off than being a massive paddle early on, being great for the first bit, and then your shape degenerates. We all do it. You see someone do 50 press-ups, and they start with a beautiful straight press-up, don't they? And by the end, they look like either some sort of saggy wet chip or a camel. It's how it happens. Once you've lost control, it's over.
In terms of timing of the feet load, so do I assume correctly that you start a bit before you actually start the catch phase, and that's because you want to put yourself up before you start pulling?
I think the pressure has to be on the foot that long before the paddle is buried.
Yeah.
Just so that everything's preloaded. Because when that paddle goes in the water, the load comes on so quickly that if you're not ready for it, you have that jarring feeling again. So yeah, you must preload. But preload isn't while you're in this stage, it's that,
so
just before it goes in.
Kind of simultaneously with a bit of a head of a load.
Yeah, just ahead.
And do you teach to pull back as well, or do you just teach only to load on the...
I don't teach to pull back, and I would rather teach without a pull bar until you've got the basics. Because the moment you start teaching to pull back, it's hip flexors, and you start the whole folding thing. As soon as you fold, your feet come away from the footrest. I know it's on the other side, but I think once you set up that pattern, so I would rather, with my kids, teach them with no pull bar. Once you're good, you can do that, that's fine, add it in, but not early days.
There's also some people will come in and they'll manage to, their body won't really come out to the side.
Yes.
So you've got Ian Wynne will come in and everything comes down and that core drops right down and his body just rotates in a really pure axis. Someone else will come around and really swing. Have you got, do you think, is there an idea?
The swing's right.
Not really? Well, not so much a swing, but your back rotating right round to the other side.
It's hard because the big paddlers have a back that big, so as it comes round, it looks like you're swinging, but I think your axis is always central.
But your hip is coming much closer to the other side of the boat, right?
Your hip can drive across a little bit, but what you don't want is, you know, when Imrie came over and everyone had to be swinging, and you have people like Andrew Kelly all of a sudden coming out over here and over here, which kind of looks a bit snazzy, but actually you've now got no weight on that paddle. So when you're looking at your kids' boats, they must never tip away from the side that you're paddling on, even here. Okay, so at the front, the boat, as soon as you push on that right leg, do it when you next go out paddling yourself, okay? So pressure on both feet, tiny pressure, just enough so you know you've got pressure on both feet. Increase the pressure on your right foot and the boat will dip right. At that point, if you try and lean it left, it can't be done. Okay? So anytime you see anyone with their boat dip into the side that they're not paddling on, you know there is zero pressure on that foot. Okay? So that's an easy, simple thing to watch out for is boat movement. It stays flat or it dips to the side you're pulling on. Throughout the whole pool, it will go down, down, down. Okay, so your athletes won't change. You'll tell them to do something, and then the assumption is they're either deaf or stupid. And it turns out they're not. They are trying to do what you're asking them to do, but it takes forever to learn it. But provided they understand the concept of what you're trying to teach them, that concept will be running in their mind all the time, and gradually some will get it. Not all of them, but you can get it. So that's pretty much covered the way I try and teach my kids, or try and correct the kids that I'm trying to work with. You will have different ways, and your way is no better or worse than my way. Okay? Maybe we taught you a different language to look at, a different way of looking at the paddlers. Spend a lot more time looking at the boat than you do looking at the paddler. If you see a load of movement and the boat is just going, there's something wrong. If you watch anyone who's good at anything, the most exaggerated you see it, I think, is in swimming. The best swimmer is the one with the least fuss. The best kayaker is also the one with the least fuss. You think, well, they're just going along. And it doesn't look very hard. It is hard, they're pulling really hard. They've got that shape locked in, boom, they do that bit, and then they shoot on. And they move a lot further than the bad paddler does, not while the paddle's in the water, but while the paddle's in the air, because they come out, they're at top speed, off they go.